This is the PressBox High School Football Show with Booker Corrigan and legendary former McDonough coach Dom Damico. The guys look over everything going on in the world of high school football, both at the private school and public school level. Now, here's Booker Corrigan.
Hey now, what a bittersweet day. Today's our last show. Booker Corrigan here with Dom Damico. Dom, I've been thoroughly impressed with your knowledge.
Thanks, Booker.
And your ability to share. You're a fine man.
It's been fun. It's been a real fun, 10 or 11 weeks, and I've really enjoyed it.
Great way to spend the fall, no doubt. And, shining some light on programs that don't normally get that, so I really do appreciate it. I had a great talk with Glenn Clark about the Helping Up mission and the coat drive he's doing. If you have some extra outerwear, you saw the bag out there?
I did.
That's a lot of stuff that's been accumulating in the Corrigan house for a couple years, so I was happy to move it along to a better place. For today's show, we want to first let you know we're coming to you from the Live Casino Hotel Studio, and we are brought to you by Wise Markets and Glen Burnie Transmissions. We also want to thank the U.S. Army. And the other aspect of today's show is the rundown. We're going to go over the state championship games for the public schools. 4 amazing games. Apparently Navy was an unbelievable host. Middletown gets my award for best postgame. We'll get into those because we're going to have a break. We're going to come back with some superlatives. And Coach Damico and I have both created some of our own awards for the year. And then we're going to finish right back where we started. And we're going to talk about the state of football or the condition of high school football in the state of Maryland. So we'll get through all those things. First and foremost, who do you want to start with your state championship, the 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A battles?
I think we work our way from top to the bottom. So
okay.
4A, Wise versus Northwest. Wise 35 to 14 over Northwest. And again, just a dominant performance by Wise. They've won 4 of the last 5 state championships, which is unbelievable. They have not lost a conference game in the county in 5 years. And this year they were a perfect 14-0.
That's a good year. Now, could that preface a little maybe your superlatives when we come back after the break? They might be, maybe not be, maybe. Definitely maybe, not a final.
Maybe. Now, I was fortunate enough at Franklin this year. We actually scrimmage Wise.
Okay.
And it was like the first or second scrimmage, and we kind of got a little bit of taste of, wow, they're really good. They had some, really good skill players. Their coaches were sound. Their scheme was sound. And I think, Coach Burgess at Franklin, we kind of was judging our Franklin's team success on how well you did against Wise in the scrimmage, and I was really impressed with Wise. So I got a chance actually to play a full scrimmage with them, and they have a great team and a great coach.
And since you're an amazing coach, I want to ask you this: how much of the stuff that you ran did you invent yourself, and how much of it was stolen from watching someone else do it first?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. When I was a young coach and I first got started, I kind of stole a lot of my stuff.
Yep.
And then once you look at it, put it on paper, implement it, and then you start kind of putting your own wrinkles into it.
And when you say your own wrinkles, and to coaches out there, one of the things that Coach Damico was amazing at doing, and I watched his teams play hundreds of games, I will tell you, you had a great knack for coming into a season knowing I have a quarterback that can throw an unbelievable 9-yard pass. And 2 years later, you would have a quarterback that had an unbelievable 19-yard pass. Or you'd have a quarterback who couldn't really throw the ball that well. And so you adapt your system. You set your objective of how you want to conquer winning that game based on your skill level and what you think your kids are capable of. You can't just force a play and say, we've always run this, because you got to have the right guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I appreciate those kind words, but I think the ultimate goal, if you're a good coach, is to win.
Yeah,
and sometimes if you watch certain lower level teams where you have either JV football or middle school or rec football, you have parents are involved and they're trying to just get their kid the ball or
daddy ball,
or they're trying to maybe get a job at the move up the the totem pole a little bit. It might be a little bit different, but once you get to high competitive high school football, your ultimate goal should be to try to win.
Yep.
And I tried to win as many games as I can. I was fortunate enough to win about 180 games, and everyone was different. So you just kind of put your plan together, and based on what you have, if you can't recruit all of your players, then you're going to have to play with what you got.
Yep.
And at McDonough for those 25 years, and for the 4 years up in Philadelphia, you look at your roster, you see their strengths and weaknesses, and you put a plan together.
A couple years ago, Thomas Stewart was the quarterback at Calvert Hall, and I only remember his name because of all the high school quarterbacks I ever saw, and I saw Bobby Sablehouse throw, 35-yard passes to Dennis Badham and Stokes and Dante Evans, but Thomas Stewart threw the best 8-yard pass I've ever seen in high school. I mean, he literally was right there on time at the right pace.
He was an amazing quarterback. I remember him too, and he was really difficult to defend because he could run, he could throw, he could scramble, he was accurate. He was a leader, and I think he came from good counsel. I mean, he might have transferred in halfway through, but he had a great couple of years at Calvert Hall, and he was one of the main reasons why they won a lot of football games when he was the quarterback.
Yeah, we'll get back to whys later in the show, but let's get down to the 3A. Damascus found a way to get it done over Linganore.
Yeah, and it was ugly actually. Running clock early, and Linganore is a pretty strong program, so you really got to take your hat off to Damascus. A ton of adversity with what was going on out there. They really had national level issues with the hazing incident, which the whole country was talking about, and then they had some illegal practices early in the year where they had to forfeit one of their first games. So their coach had to keep it together. The adversity was there. They you start off 0-1, and then you got to keep building it up. And then I think they played Quince Orchard early, and they kind of got 2 losses right away. With all that adversity, it could have went the other way real quickly. The coach kept it together. Again, Damascus with a running clock, they won 4 out of the last 5. And with those illegal practices and all the issues that they had. So hats off to Damascus and all the talented players they got up there, and a great job by their coach keeping it together for the whole season.
And you hear that phrase like having illegal practices. He's not the only one who gets together with his team in the offseason and does some stuff. He may have stepped over a line or two. I'm sure he's not an awful person, but you still,
sure.
The rules exist for everybody's, fairness and level playing field.
I'm sure there's others doing it. He's probably got caught, or something must have happened. I'm not really sure of the details, but I know that they were forced to forfeit a game. And but again, we played Damascus. Great, really talented, well coached, great atmosphere, and congratulations to Damascus for another state championship.
And now in the 2A, Middletown finds a way to get it done over Potomac. What'd you like about Middletown?
Well, their quarterback, Reese Poffenbarger.
Great
name. What a great name. What a great name. But Reese was, 18 for 25 for almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And, Potomac couldn't come back from that. Again, you mentioned about Navy being such a great host, but it's a perfect venue for Maryland Public School playoff because the size is perfect. You have it at M&T, and it kind of feels empty.
Like a ghost town.
It feels empty. So I think Navy's venue is really the right size, and they're a great host. And Middletown's whole town just showed up.
Yeah, well, I heard the whole town showed up at Middletown first before they go down, and also at Catoctin. They showed the boys off before the game.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, the high school football in those towns are really important. Middletowns have, again, great support from their students, great support from the community. And one thing I liked in doing the research is they had a motto to win the 14th. So this, I think, is the first year. If you win the 14th game, obviously you're going to be state champs. So they started talking about that in the summer, and their motto to all their players were, hey, guys, we're going to still play. We still want to be playing during the 14th game, and we want to win the 14th game. So that's a good motto.
Yeah.
And Middletown made it happen.
And some other stats that I got from my man Brian Walker. He had 4 catches for 92 yards, a touchdown. Matthew Mancini, 68 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Husky had a 65-yard touchdown score. And, of course, you already mentioned Poffenbarger. What a great name for football. You got Caden Fisher, 81 yards rushing, and Christian Diaz picked up a grinder's 4 yards.
Wow.
So thank you to Brian for that information. Great to have him joining us. Now the 1A, Catoctin, they found a way once again.
Yeah, they did. Dunbar was the only real local team that was, made it to the championship, but just a really tough first half for Dunbar, Coach Smith's team. 4 interceptions, 2 lost fumbles, 8 penalties, a 6-yard punt. That equals a 31-0 halftime deficit. And, no team really at any level can come back from 31-0 at halftime. It's really difficult. And, in high school football, you get the running clock rule, so one more score and it's a running clock. So, yeah, Dunbar, I'm sure, Coach Smith is really proud that they made it to the championship. Just way too many mistakes in the first half for Dunbar to come back from.
And congratulations to their head coach, Doug Williams, on taking home the title. Of course, from Middletown, Colin DeLauder, 25 years old.
Wow.
And he's a state champion football coach. That's kind of cool.
That is. I mean, young new generation of kids,
Yeah.
new generation of football.
And you were a head coach when you were 26, maybe 25?
24.
24, you were a head coach
years.
up at, yeah, but it was only in Philly. It wasn't in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, that's true. But
We are up against the break. Hey, I want to thank the folks at Corrigan Sports Enterprises. We did the STX Rivals Challenge yesterday. We had 15 public school club teams, because it's a violation if they play as the school. So they were public school club teams, and Broadnack took down Severna Park, or a team made up largely of players from Broadnack, took down a team of players largely made up from Severna Park in the championship game. Congrats. The Centennial played amazingly well. Marriott's Ridge played great. If you want to get to be a part of that, go to CSELax.com. Next year, they gave away 40 free STX rival helmets, the same helmet Duke and Syracuse use. Absolutely phenomenal day. Great, although it was a little chilly. Earl Brewer and I, you can find us on CSELax.com. We broadcast the championship game in the cold, but we made it, and Earl's a fighter. It was his 90th birthday. Happy birthday, Earl. We'll be back on the other side of the break. I got superlatives. It's going to be awesome.
Need groceries today but don't have time to shop? Order online with same-day pickup or delivery at Wise Markets. Wise to go online. Now that's convenient.
This is Stan the Fan for Glen Burnie Transmissions, located right in the heart of Glen Burnie for almost 60 years. If you suspect you're having a transmission problem, GBT can save you hundreds of dollars over taking it to the dealers for a repair. Make an appointment for a free diagnostic and estimate. Call GBT at 855-728-1841. Their mission is simple: to provide excellent service at a reasonable price. Go to their website at gbt-online.com to check out all of the 5-star reviews. Let my friend Mark Schwartzman and his GBT team take the troubles out of transmission troubles. Call them today at 855-728-1841.
Respect. It's more than a word. In the U.S. Army, it is one of our core values, earned through selfless service to our nation and making a difference both at home and abroad. On the Army team, respect is earned daily. And now, in addition to earning respect, you may earn up to $40,000 in bonuses if you qualify. To learn more, visit goarmy.com/bonus or call 1-800-USA-ARMY, paid for by the U.S. Army.
Hey now, and we are back, and if you have not picked up the hard copy issue of PressBox, great writing, great information, and I like the cartoons.
very nice.
They always have a cartoon at the end, so it's kind of cool. Big shout out to my girl Tanya down in Sarasota, Florida. She's watching. Can you take that from me, please, before I make a total mess of this? Let's get into our superlatives, and I realize I'm a numbnut. I know you are the talent. Dom, let's be honest, and I hear from people, Aaron Fink can't stop telling me, boy, he saves you every time. My first superlative, the coach that won't get any other award, Anthony Zayo from Loyola. I just admire the way he has altered the course of the culture of football and brought them all. They're all pulling the oars the same direction. They're not the greatest team this year, but they certainly impressed me in their ability to compete when they had to.
Yeah, no doubt. I would second that. I think the culture that he brought back to
Would you
Loyola.
second that he's not going to get any other award? This is his postseason award. Like, congrats, coach.
Congrats, coach. We get a firm handshake and a couple fine words. But you know what? No one in high school was really doing it for the money or for the trophies or the plaques that you get. So yeah, he did a great job with those kids. I think he has the program going in the right direction. I think now they need to determine where they, what level they want to compete at. And I'm sure it's going to be in the A conference. And I think if he continues to do what he's doing there, there'll be an A conference team and there'll be a competitive A conference team.
My next superlative, best Turkey Bowl performance in back-to-back years. Cole Herbert, 3 touchdowns in both years. What a stud athlete. I mean, the kid's a big, strong young man, and he certainly brought it on the big stage at Towson on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, no doubt. And I believe he's a multi-sport athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And plays sports all year long. So it's always great to see multi-sport athletes thrive on the football field.
The multi-sport kid, you learn so many little nuances of your favorite sport when you're playing your non-favorite sport. And it's if you can adapt that, if you can find your role on any other team, I think it's well worth it. Plus, that gives you a connection to a whole other group of really good friends. Because you're all pulling.
It does, and it gives you a connection to a whole another group of people later on that you can lean on as it relates to your life post high school, and not just having a bunch of football players, having your back for the rest of your life. You also now have 2 or possibly 3 sets of people that are really have your best interests at heart.
And you'll be networking with them.
No doubt.
Potentially. Try to get out of your parents' basement, right? That's the goal.
That's the goal.
That is the goal. But no, sincerely, Cole Herbert, probably one of the best passers of the lacrosse ball I've seen in a good while, which is saying something from the midfield. Obviously, attackmen are really good at passing. But Cole Herbert is as good as most attackmen at passing the ball. So shout out to him. Best team, St. Francis.
Yeah, it's hard to, if there was a game tomorrow and St. Francis played anyone in the state of Maryland, St. Francis would probably win.
Right.
So I think you're probably true, but I'm going to go with Wise.
I like it.
Wise is 14-0.
And we're going to get back in the state of Maryland football, and when we finish the show and wrap that up, we're going to get into a little bit of the St. Francis quote, because it happens in a lot of sports. It happens at a lot of levels. They've obviously taken it to where they want to be a national power, and they're going to do what it takes. And they're giving kids a lot of great opportunities to have an education or be in a situation that they would not normally have. So you have to respect a little bit of that. But yes, they do have they draw from everywhere.
Well,
so,
yeah, I think the best way to look at it, the way I look at it is, and it's not a knock on anything that anyone's doing, I think in high school soccer right now, there's academy soccer and there's high school soccer, and there's different levels. Academy teams don't play high school teams. The academy teams are made up of primarily Division I players that get together and play at a real high level, and they want to play real high level soccer. So the soccer coach at McDonough told me it wouldn't be fair to have regular high school teams playing against academy teams, so they don't schedule each other and they don't play. So I think there are some schools in the country that are playing academy football, not just St. Francis. There's other schools that play too. Yeah. And so, in my opinion, it's not fair for academy football to be playing high school football. And I think that's kind of where I am on that.
And we will dig into that. You definitely want to hear about it. My next one, and again, I got a little. I coached a guy from Middletown who was just an absolutely phenomenal kid, Johnny Galloway, so great. Also, a couple of his teammates, too, were phenomenal. My man Christian was a great player, Ottenritter. But their cowboy hat tradition, I thought, was awesome. And I'm enough of a knucklehead to give them an award for Best Championship Game Cowboy Hats. So that goes to Reese Poffenbarger, who started the tradition. And it was like 4 or 5 games ago, he showed up with a cowboy hat after the game. He took his dad's. And now all the fans went down to Navy, and there were cowboy hats everywhere. You would have thought you were in Texas.
Well, you drive through Middletown, you might think you are in Texas. So, I'm betting there's a lot of cowboy boots and cowboy hats in Middletown. So.
And I got a pair of cowboy boots.
Because
I'm the biggest knucklehead on this show. Next, and this is my last one. I might want to end with this one. So give me some of your superlatives, because yours are way more football related.
Well, Coach of the Year, I came up with 2 names for Coach of the Year. Number 1, Mount St. Joe, Richie Holzer. Again, the MIAA conference champ. But I went back and I looked at their losses. They had 2 losses. They basically lost to McDonough by 1 play, by 7 points, which was a very competitive game. Could have went either way. And they lost to Good Counsel, who was the WCAC championship, and they lost that game by 8 points. So Mount St. Joe, Richie Holzer, A conference champs, and really just losing by 2 plays in against 2 really good teams. So Richie Holzer and the co-champ would definitely, you have to go with DeLon Parrish at Wise. I mean, 14-0 this year, 4A state champs, 4 out of the last 5 years state champs, and I just don't think he gets enough credit for what kind of football program he puts on the field at Wise.
And you mentioned Good Counsel. They won it last week, the WCAC. And if you have not scrolled back through, listen to the story Dom tells about their kicker from last week's show. It is well worth the 8 to 10 minutes that you're going to listen to it. So it'll be the best part of your day. What's the next superlative? Offensive?
Yeah, I do. I got Offensive Player of the Year. And again, I'm going to stick with Mount St. Joe just because I've watched them play probably 5 or 6 games this year. But Billy Atkins Jr. at quarterback. Again, they list him in all the recruiting services as a professional style pocket passer. And he's literally 6 feet tall, probably 5'11", maybe 170 pounds. And I watched him warm up, and he spins the ball as well as I've seen a high school quarterback spin the ball. Not only does he have a quick release, but he is extremely accurate. He just kind of made every single throw he had to do to beat us in the game against Franklin. And all the games that I've watched on tape, just an amazing offensive weapon for Coach Holzer. So my vote goes to Billy Atkins for the Offensive Player of the Year.
Guessing you have a defensive play. Am I correct?
I do.
It's amazing how smart I am. A defensive. So you did an Offensive Player of the Year. Now this is defensive.
Yeah, and
I am Captain Obvious.
And you got to go with the number one player in the country, the Clemson commit, received from Damascus. I watched his highlight tapes. I played against him in the quarterfinals, and I'm going to give him the defensive award, but I'm going to make a prediction that he ends up being an offensive lineman at Clemson.
No kidding.
And I think he's probably going to be an NFL player in offensive if he stays healthy. I've never seen a kid on the offensive side of the ball displace defensive players like he does. I mean, literally, he is bigger, stronger, and he is a powerful young man. He gets incredible movement. He brings his feet, and he is a dominating offensive lineman. So we're going to give him the defensive award, but again, I think his future is going to be on the O-line side.
That's an interesting call. I'll be sure to follow that and see how it ends up. My man Greggy Pike, shout out to Greg. He went from boys Latin lacrosse to University of Georgia football, played offensive line.
I do remember that name.
Greggy Pike. Now you got a special teamer.
I do. Harrison Beatty from McDonough. Boy, Harrison really dedicated himself to be a great kicker, and what a weapon for McDonough. You guarantee he was kicking it way out of the back of the end zone, so you didn't have to cover kicks. They're going to start on the 20-yard line, and that's where they're going to get the ball, and they're going to have to drive 80 yards on you. Besides that, he was a great punter. He was a phenomenal field goal extra point kicker. Harrison Beatty, just an incredible weapon for McDonough.
And I love hearing you say that he's a kicker that can put it out of the end zone, because if I'm on that team, the coach can be like, Booker, you can go in. You can go cover this kick, because all you get to do is run down the field and then high-five somebody.
I mean, it's almost like the pro guys. You watched the game yesterday. As soon as they kick it, the guys are jogging off the field because they know it's going, in the back of the end zone. They're not even blocking anybody.
Yeah.
Harrison was the first kid I've ever seen teams where as soon as he kicked the ball and you heard his foot hit it, different kind of sound. We both enjoy playing golf, and you're on the range with really good players. When their ball hits the club, a really good player, it makes a different sound. And Harrison's foot hits the ball, it makes a different sound.
I think, you know what that's called? Sweet spot.
I think it's called talent.
Well, talent, usually getting into the sweet spot.
Yeah,
is that your last one? Because you already did team, right?
I did. Yep, that's my last one.
So the last one that I'm going to give out, before we get into the state of football, or the condition of high school football in the state of Maryland, I'm going to give my last superlative. And Dom, this might drop your jaw. This is the best thank you I can give to people who never get thanked. And I want to remind you all, we couldn't play these games without the refs. I understand that they are human beings and they make mistakes, but 95% of the time, they do it exactly the way they would do it if they had to do it over again. Probably more than 95% of the time. Yes, they probably walk off the field and say, I missed that one. But they didn't walk onto the field thinking who was going to win or what they were going to do. They came onto the field, they did their job, they got paid not very much, and we were able to play a lot of amazing high school football games because we have refs. And I think sometimes they take a bad beat, and I want to make sure that somewhere out there, if you played in a high school football championship game or your kid did, thank a ref, because they wouldn't have played the game. The refs don't show up. Do you play?
No, you don't. And you know what it is? It's a tough way to make $75. I mean, there's coaches screaming at you all the time.
Yep.
The players are upset with you. The fans are screaming at you. Everybody thinks their calls are bad. And, you got to watch from going to the field to your car going home. And there's not very many jobs in the country where you're going to be paid $75 and you got to get escorted to your car to leave the stadium. I don't think too many people are going to sign up for that.
They just do it for the police escort.
Just for the police.
No, it's funny you said that you have coaches yelling. And coaches know the bulk of the rules. I'm going to try and be honest here. Players know less, fewer. And the people in the stands know hardly anything. And they're the ones who are screaming the loudest at the only person who's actually there that we couldn't play without. So let's just raise the bar a little bit in our treatment of officials.
Yeah, and the ones that are screaming in the crowd, they do know the least, and even worse after like 3 cocktails of Red Robin before they show up at the game, which kind of sinks their intellect even a little more.
Right now they're down at my level. All right, so the end of the show, because we started this year way back when, and I said I get Coach Damico on. I'm Booker Corrigan. Thanks for joining us. And I said, what do you feel is the state of Maryland football? What condition is it in? We've had an entire year or season to examine it. How do you feel now?
Well, that's a great question. I think the state of individual talented players and teams are definitely extremely strong. There's a ton of interest at the FBS level, the FCS level, all over college landscape are Maryland kids. So I think the talent level is good. The team level talent is very high. But I think the unity of the state system is fractured and needs to be looked at. And what I mean by that is, you have an MIAA league, which has a bunch of different rules and probably not enough rules. You have teams that are in it and out of it and moving and going independent and jumping back and forth, and that's kind of a nightmare, I think, for the MIAA and for the state. And then you have, the WCAC. You've got some of the teams are in D.C., some of the teams are in Virginia, some of the teams are in Maryland. And, what do you do with those schools as it relates to unifying the state of Maryland? You have the Maryland public schools, and, the Maryland public schools, you don't see a whole lot of interleague play between the MIAA and the public schools, or between the WCAC and the public schools. Most public schools won't play them. Their point system is affected, their playoff status is affected. So I just think someone has to step in and figure out how to unify it to have a true state champ. Who's the best 4A school, 3A school, 2A school, 1A school, non-boundary school, boundary school, tuition or not? I think there needs to be a format or a formula to figure out who are the true state champs, and not just have an MIAA champ, a WCAC metropolitan champ, an independent school like St. Francis, who's going actually for the mythical national title. And then you have Loyola and a couple other teams that are kind of independent. So I think somehow, I don't know how. I know I read some articles up in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah, this was great. We talked about this in the pre-show. Go ahead.
We did. Like up in Pennsylvania, there's people actually, pointing some legislation out there to kind of get this all to happen, and not just focusing on football, but focusing on football, basketball, lacrosse, baseball, and softball, and trying to come up with a way to deal with the number of transfers that are transferring from schools to school for athletic purposes. Especially the big buzzword is junior and senior transfers, where schools are actively recruiting, and it's not just in football. They're actively recruiting Division I talent.
And again, you're talking about the legislation that's going through in Pennsylvania, but it could also be adopted. But
sure, state to state, I think, obviously.
And one of the key components you were telling me earlier is the fact that the transfers, that's okay. You just can't have 31 of them.
Yeah.
You can have, put a limit, for, I don't know whether it would be football or for the entire school. You can have 7 transfers on your roster for football, 3 of them in wrestling, 2 of them in basketball, 4 in lacrosse, 4 in soccer. I don't know what that magic number is, but they have to find a way to have a graduated cylinder of, okay, here's the sport, here's how many people are on the field at one time, and here's how many transfers can be on the field at one time.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's a starting point. I think that's a stumbling block for a lot of schools, because a lot of headmasters or principals or presidents of these independent paid-to-go schools don't want to limit themselves in the number of paid transfers that they have coming into their school. So they're less reluctant to sign up for something like that. But I think to make it fair, I think that number needs to be a concrete number. You can't have one school with 25 transfers coming in that have already had Division I scholarships, whether it be football, lacrosse, or basketball. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's got to be fair, and I think you bring too many in, I think it becomes unfair.
So do you think there could be a potential, could Dom Damico be the commissioner of Maryland football? Unify Maryland football. I can see the bumper stickers now. Unify Maryland football. We do the Maryland flag in the background.
Well, if they ever had anything like that, I would love to kind of add my 2 cents into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would want to lead it, but I would definitely help guide it and hopefully try to get it right because, I think the talent's there, the coaching there, there's a high level of play, and I just think like other states, I really think, Pennsylvania does a great job. It's a much bigger state, but, you have St. Joe's Prep up in Philadelphia. It's a private school playing for state championship this year, and, they're playing a public school. So I think somehow we got to figure that out in Maryland so that we can see finally, maybe a Mount St. Joe Damascus state champ game, which I think will have a lot of interest. And I think there's got to be the adults in Maryland got to sit down and figure it out
and start thinking like adults.
Correct.
Yeah. Hey to my girl Tanya down in Sarasota. She just reached out and said hello. Dom, any shout outs you want to give? How about Neek? I love Neek.
Oh, she's the best. She's the best.
Your daughter Dominique
gave me 2 great grandsons. I've been running around with them for the last 5 years and 3 years, and that's kind of what gets me up right now.
And my man Luke Jackson, always thank you so much. Glenn Clark does a great job of having me on to plug this. But I want to thank everybody for making us part of your sports viewing day. Dom, amazing job this year. Lots of great facts, lots of great fun. That's what it's supposed to be, right?
It's great working with you, too. You do a great job, man.
Thank you, brother. And to sign off for the last time, I will tell you, I'm Booker Corrigan reminding you, you only get one shot at today.